Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started for today. Uh, Welcome and thank you for coming to Photoshop Basics. This program is suitable for adults and teenagers. My name is Diego, and I am a librarian at Harrington Library in Plano. And then on chat moderation today, we have Priyanka.
Hi,
And then
everyone.
All right. And then just some guidelines that are applicable to this program. You'll be muted during this class, and then video will not be allowed. You'll only be seeing my screen. And then at the top of the screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer, like seeing the links we'll be sharing with you today. You are welcome to ask questions or request that we repeat something during the program. If you see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat, you can click on that to view, to enter in any chat questions on the window, and then the library staff will be seeing any questions you have through chat. Or if you see a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, you can also use that to ask questions. And then a recording of today's class will be available in a few days on the Plano Public Library YouTube page, and you can watch and practice later if you'd like to. And then, yeah, if you um, would like to follow along, you can, or just if you have Photoshop on your computer, you can follow along that way as well. But we will be just going through um, some practices today. And if that's it, we will go ahead and get started. So today we'll be going over what Photoshop is. We will be going over different types of edits, such as teeth whitening, blemish removing, background changes, and more. We'll do a demonstration of adjustment layers, saving and exporting, basic image manipulation, and image retouching. We'll look at other resources the library users have access to, and then we'll have a conclusion. Um, so yeah, and then just as a disclaimer, our instructors are not Adobe experts. We are here to provide a general overview of Adobe Photoshop and demonstrate some tools that are commonly used. Information in this program was accurate as of this time, but programs like Adobe have updates and changes often, so um, sometimes things can get updated. For Adobe expertise, you can use LinkedIn Learning or Udemy, which are resources that are free with the Plano Public Library card. You can also explore more about Adobe software by making a reservation to use the digital creation space at the library, or called the DCS to use the different software. You can register online at planolibrary.org for more information on getting a library card and other ways to use your library card. Right. And so what is Photoshop? Photoshop is a image manipulation software. It is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. It's used to create and enhance photographs, illustrations, and 3D artwork. And Photoshop has many functionalities. Two of the most common ones are photo editing and digital art creation. And Photoshop is raster or pixel based, which means that we are manipulating the pixels on an image. This is usually applicable to photographs or other images that are taken with a digital camera. Um, so yeah, does anyone have any questions about this so far? We will keep going. So there are different types of editing in Adobe Photoshop. You can directly change the pixels of an image, which is known as destructive editing, because you're changing what the actual image looks like. Or you can change the layers that sit on top of the image, kind of like a filter, which is known as non-destructive editing, because it sits on top. Using layers can allow changes without changing the base image in some cases. And then some edit functions have to be done on the base layers or destructive editing. So duplicating the original layer can preserve the unedited copy. So putting a layer on top of the base, your original image, can allow you to make changes without actually editing your base image as well. But that's something we'll look at in the demonstration. All right. So now we're going to be going through our demonstration. If anyone has any questions throughout, we can take some time to go through it or take some a moment to answer your question. But otherwise, we will go ahead and get started with that. Whenever you're using Adobe Photoshop, there you have two ways of opening whatever file or image you're wanting to use. You can go to this rainbow icon here and open it, and this is the Adobe Creative Cloud. And then you can find Photoshop. And it takes a second to open usually. And then if you go to File, Open, you can look at the files that you have on your computer and choose your desired file to open in Photoshop. All right, another way of opening a file in Photoshop is to go directly to your file that you are wanting to open, right-clicking it and pressing and going to open with and pressing Photoshop. So those are the two main ways of opening files here. All right. So just as a quick overview of the different areas of Photoshop, this up here where you'll find file, edit, image, and other options is called the menu bar, and it has standard menu options. And then along just underneath is called the options bar, and it features tool-specific options. So specifically to whatever tool you have selected, this will change. So if I have what's called the move tool, our options will change. Same for our cropping tool, different things here. So, and this is called the toolbar, and it's where you'll find the most commonly used tools that you'll be using. And that changes the menu or the options bar up here. Over here on the right side, we have our workspace options. This allows us to change the appearance of what our workspace looks like. And then each of these have preset features that change the tools and panels that are visible. So if you were, for example, if you were wanting to work on painting, it would change whatever tool the tools visible to show you the most commonly used tools for painting, as well as the most commonly panels used for painting. But today we're just going to use essentials because that'll show us the main things that we're going to be using on our project. And then here is our document window. This is where we are going to be having our workspace. This is where the image you're working on will show up. And then below this, below our workspace option is our panels. It has things like these options for colors, has our properties and adjustment layers, and then it has our layers tab where we can see what layers we have on the project we're working on. So these are our three divisions of our essentials workspace. And then you can also adjust the sizes of these as well if you need to view more options in there. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so to get started in our first demonstration, we have our beach image here. As you can see, it does look a little dark. We might not be able to see all of the details we might want to in this photo. So one way that we can adjust this, the first thing we'll want to do when we're adjusting this is we're going to want to make a layer so we're not editing directly on this background image because we want to be able to save our image just in case we make any edits that we don't want to make on there. So for example, if I were to take a paintbrush and just paint red lines all over here, this is directly on my image. And instead of doing that, we want to put a layer on top. So what we'll do is we'll go to our layers panel here, and on the bottom right, we're going to click on this lock. So what that does is it unlocks our background layer and changes it. And so to fully protect it after this, we're going to have this selected still, and we're going to click that lock again. This keeps us from doing anything like making those lines on here that we just made because it's now fully locked. All right, and so to get started with actually making our adjustments that we do want, we're going to go to our adjustments here. Um, and then we can see some preset adjustments that Photoshop already has ready for us. But if we want to just adjust one thing at a time in this image, we're going to click on single adjustments. And for this one, we are going to change the levels of our photograph. And what that does is it puts basically another layer on top of our background that's just going to change the levels of the photo. And so it also pulls up what's called a histogram, where it shows our darks that are in the image, our midtones, and our brights. And each of these sliders will control each of those things. So for example, this slider controls the darks. So if we bring it up, it's going to make the darks of our image more prominent. And same for this one, but it'll do the opposite with the lights. So you could use these to adjust, but it's mostly going to be just controlling the lights and the darks. And so what we want to do is change the midtones of our image because we don't want it to be too overly bright or overly dark. So for this one, we're going to move the midtones closer to our shadows so we can bring some of the shadows up without you bringing the lights too light. So I think this looks good because it shows us some of these details up front while also keeping our sunset back here. And then Photoshop is kind of with the layers is kind of like it's kind of like having sheets of plastic laid on top of each other. We can move these layers below or on top of each other. So for example, if I move this adjustment that we just put underneath our original image, you can't see it because it's just like a piece of plastic underneath our original image. But if we put it on top, that's where we can see the changes that we've made. And then you can also do something similarly by pressing on this eye, it'll change the visibility. All right, well, since we're happy with this image, we can go ahead and save our work. If you're working on an image and you wanted to save a draft because you're still working on it and you want to be able to come back to it in Photoshop, that's when we'll go to File and press Save As. We'll press OK on that. So that type of file is called a PSD file. These files can only be opened in Photoshop, and it will also save our layers that we have. So if you were wanting to continue to work on a project, you would want to save a PSD file. That way you could bring it back into Photoshop and still have those layers. If you were to just save the image by exporting it, you would then all of those edits that you have on there would be saved on top of the file as well, and you would have to remake or readjust options that you no longer wanted. So saving it as a PSD will let us have these layers still open. But if if your project was completed and you wanted to post this on social media or post it on your website, then you would want to export your file, which you can find by going to File, Export, and then Export As. This will let us save our image as a different type of file, like a JPEG or a PNG, which is much smaller than a PSD file and can be put on different websites or social media. And so then we can press on export. And this is telling us that if we save it as a different type of file, we'll lose the information of our layers. So that's what that's telling us. So we can save it as a PNG here. And now we can have a smaller file that we can put online. It's really, even if whether or not you're still working on your project, it is important to save as you go. So either way, if you were still working, I would recommend doing save as and saving at a PSD. All right, well, now that we've done this one, we are going to move on to some basic image manipulation. So I'm going to go to File, Open to view the files that I have on here. I'm going to click on this flower. All right, so we're going to go over some basic image manipulation for this next one. So to do that, we are going to go to our object selection tool. Each of these tools, if you just kind of hover over them, you can read what they do and their name. So if you ever forget what the icon is, you can always just kind of hover and it'll let you know. Whenever they have this little triangle beside them, that means they have additional tools beneath. And if you click and hold on it, you can see um, the other tools that are beneath it. But for this one, we're going to use the object selection tool. And then we are set to rectangle, so that's going to be helpful for us because then we can just select our flower. So we're going to click and drag from the top right to the bottom left of this flower like this, and it will automatically select the petals and that center for us. All right, and then in our panels over here, we're going to go to the second panel again. We're going to make an adjustment similar to we did last time. This will make another layer for us on top of our background. And for this one, we are going to go still to single adjustment because we just want to change one aspect of this flower. We're going to go to hue and saturation. And similarly, it made another layer, just like last time. And this would let us change the color of the flower because we have just the flower selected, so we can change the flower's hue. We can also change how bright it is with saturation or its lightness. So for this one, we are going to move the slider all the way over to the right to make it this bright bluish color. But if you wanted to change something else, you could do that too. But for this one, we'll make this blue color. We'll keep it nice and bright. All right. So now that we've done that, we can click off of that adjustment. If we wanted to go back, clicking on this layer will let us do that as well. If you wanted to see what the flower looked like without this layer on top, you could hide it. And then kind of like we said earlier, if you were to hide just the background, there's just nothing because all we have is that layer of plastic making this blue. So we're going to keep that on too. And the next thing we want to do is I want to swap the background of this. I like this nice grassy background, but I think I want to switch the background for it. So we are going to once again go to the object selection tool. And this time we're going to just click on the flower and see what this does. Oh, we want to be in the background layer. My mistake. We're going to click on the flower this time. Because we were still on this hue layer, it just selected the full thing because it was all together. But the background, it is able to differentiate the flower for us. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to this option up here where it says layer. We're going to go to new, and we're going to click layer via copy. So what this is going to do is it's going to copy what we've selected. So in this case, our flower, and place our selection onto a new layer by itself. So it's gonna take it off of the background. So it'll just be the flower. See how you can kind of see in this thumbnail here, this is just the flower by itself. Since we haven't made any changes to it yet, uh, if we turn it off, you don't see any difference. But if we were to turn the background off, we could just see the flower because it's separate now from the background. And the next thing we want to do is we want to embed a new background because that's what we're trying to do. So we're going to go to File and we can place embedded. And I'm going to choose this starry sky because that's what I want on there. And it placed it on top of this flower. So once we make our changes, we can go ahead and put it below. But what we want to do is we want to fix it to the background here and place it just so it's the same size as our background. to replace it. And then we're going to put it beneath our flower so we can still see that bright blue flower on there. And so now that the background is underneath, we just see this blue flower. And then, all right, and so what's next is we are going to place another image in this one. So to place an image again, or to place a new image, we're going to go to File, Place Embedded, and then we're going to click on the next image we want to put in there. So I'm going to click on this moon, and then we can resize it. I'm going to make it smaller, 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 because I want it to be in the background. And I'm going to place it right up here. And then if we click off of it, it'll see how it's also placed in a new layer. If we wanted it for some reason on top of the flower, we could put it on top by moving its layer. All right, and so then I also want to change how this moon looks because it doesn't look too realistic in this picture, but we can, with a few added effects, we can try to change that. So if we come down here below the layers to this FX, it's going to add a style to this layer. So if we click on that one, and then we click on outer glow, this is going to let us change what this moon's appearance looks like. So now that we have an outer glow, we can adjust the size of it because that's going to make the moon look like it's glowing. And we can make that bigger, smaller. We can also change how it spreads. I think the lower spread is going to look more realistic. And then we can also add an inner glow here and make that look like it's glowing a bit more as well. So if you're doing this, you can change these settings and see how you want it to look. And when you're satisfied, you can click OK. And so now the moon looks like it's a bit more incorporated into the picture because we added some effects to it. And then let's say you wanted to share this. You wanted to make it a square, that way you could put it on your website. Then we would use this cropping tool or this crop tool over here. I think this is actually the crop tool. So we'll hover over it just so we know. So this is the crop tool. You can change the size here. I'm going to click the square because I want my image to be a square. And you can put everything in there. And if you click on this check mark, it'll now crop it. All right. So now that we've gone over some basic image manipulation and adding a background, I think we're ready to move on to our next exercise. If nobody has any questions. Okay, well then we will go ahead and move on to the next one. I don't need to save these ones, but if I did, I could. We're going to go to new file. Oh, no, we're going to go to open actually. And we will be retouching this image. So now we're going to be going over some basic image retouching. So for image retouching, you can use what's called the zoom tool down here. This is going to let us zoom closer into the face so we can see more details. So if you just click once with the plus, you can get closer. Or if you click and drag and go up or down, the zoom tool is also going to move in or out for us. Oops. All right, so let me keep the zoom tool on actually. So now that we are on this, we are going to actually do something very similar to what we did the first time because we don't necessarily want to be manipulating this background image because we want to preserve it. So if we right click on this layer and press duplicate layer, and we can keep it as background copy, what it's going to do is make a layer that we can edit. That way, if we make some edits that we're not happy with, we can always go back and turn them off or go back on them, and we haven't done anything to our background layer. All right, and then since while we have background, our copy selected, then we'll go ahead and go to our spot healing brush. This is going to let us make, oh, this is our spot healing brush. This is going to allow us to make adjust or to heal some of those blemishes if you don't want them on an image. We can change our brush size and hardness as here as well. The hardness is going to adjust the edges of your brush. So since we are doing this on a face, we probably want it to be pretty low or at 0 because we don't want our edits to be obvious. We want to make it look more natural. And same for our brush. We'll just make it just a bit bigger than the size of what we're wanting to heal on here. All right, and then what we'll do next is we will click to paint over some of these blemishes. Um, you can do this and you can drag a little bit, but the more that um, you drag, the more that's going to change in the image. So we can adjust these slightly by going over them. But if you go too big, it doesn't necessarily look too natural. So for example, if we were to just color over an area like this, it's going to change it in a way that looks unnatural because what we're doing here is we are editing the pixels of our image rather than layering like we did before. So this is our destructive editing because we're editing the actual pixels of the image. So if we want this type of editing, we want to do slowly and gradually. So you can build up, but you don't necessarily want to do large areas at a time. So we can go ahead and do some of these. And then you can also do this type of spot healing on things like lint on the suit. So we can go ahead and get some of this lint off of there. What this is doing is it's blending that area that we're selecting in um, with its surrounding area. So you can do that for things like lint. We can do that for the stain right here on the jacket. It's going to blend that in. So that's what we can use the spot healing brush with or for. All right, and then when we're satisfied, we can just go ahead and stop the spot healing because um, as we can see, it's only on this background copy. So if we turn it back, if we turn the visibility of our background copy off, it shows our original image still too. So that's what this tool is going to be used for. The next thing we can do, which is really popular for portraiture, for other images that are taken, is teeth whitening. So if we were to zoom in close to the teeth, it's going to let us get more precise. I know it's close, but it's going to let us make sure we're only editing the teeth. So we're going to zoom in close to the teeth, and then we want to select our lasso tool. So looks like it's right here under our selection brush that we use, or our selection that we used earlier. We're going to click this lasso one. And this is going to let us outline the teeth so that we're only adjusting those and not anything else. So if we click and drag, we can outline the teeth. And it can be difficult to do all of the teeth together. So what we can do is we can do it in sections. So I'm going to do this small section. And then if I click and hold Shift, it's going to let me continue lassoing around without making just a new selection. It'll let me continue the selection I was already working on. So I'm going to just click and hold Shift while I'm doing this. That way you can take breaks while you're selecting. You could, if you wanted to, try to select all of the teeth together, but you don't necessarily have to. So it looks like I missed a spot. So I'm going to try to incorporate that as well. And then if you wanted to take something off, if you click and hold Alt, see how the lasso now has a minus by it, you could take out sections if you wanted as well. But we want that still in, so we're going to keep it selected. We're going to finish this up like this. All right, and then here back in our panels, we're going to navigate to adjustments again. Like we said earlier, this is going to create a layer that is on top of our image, or for in this instance, it's going to be on top of whatever we've selected. And then we want to change the hue and saturation again. And so what we'll do is we'll move the saturation to the left to desaturate the teeth and make them look a bit more white. You don't want to go too white because that no longer blends in with the image anymore. So we're just going to change it a bit. We're going to make it a bit less saturated so that these teeth still look natural, but have been whitened. And then we can move our lightness slightly to the right to brighten them as well. So we'll do that too. Not too much, but just slightly. That way we are brightening those areas. It looks like we have a question about whether the object selection tool would have worked, like when we did the petals, without having to draw this outline. It may have, but what that object selection tool is doing is it's sensing what's on the image, and so it could have picked up on things like the gums or the lips, and so this the lasso tool lets you be a bit more precise. So that's why we use that, and also just so we could practice a new tool. But it is possible that if you were to use the object selection tool, it would have gone through as well. But the lasso tool is going to let us be more precise with something like this. Um, and so then we can zoom back out and we can kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like for us. And then if we wanted to see what that looked like without that top layer on it, we can go back and forth, and we can also continue to adjust as we want, as we'd like to. So if I decided this wasn't enough edits, I could still continue to adjust that top layer on there. But yeah, so this is how that would work. We can see the differences here. Okay. Well, that is our last demonstration for this class. Does anyone have any other questions? I like the question about the object selection tool. That was really helpful. If you had red eye, how would you fix that? So that's also something that there is a specific tool for, or you could also um, use where are we at? The spot healing brush could be used for something like that as well. Or you could use some of the other features as well. Depending on what it looks like, it might depend on the specific instance. But there are different tools, like there is the red eye tool specifically that it could be used for. We don't necessarily, we could put that on the background layer. So we could see what that's going to do for us. But because we don't have a red eye, see it kind of put this small black dot on there. Because we don't have that, it's not going to show us exactly. But that is one option, is to select the area and then have it adjust that way. Or you could manually do that, if correct that as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and zoom back out on this one. All right, we'll see if there's any more questions. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up. All right, so we'll go back here. Oops, so if we went too far back. All right, so we do also have some other technology programs upcoming. We have Empowering Entrepreneurs, um, and it's an introduction to our digital creation space. This is going to be more business and entrepreneur focused, but it is an introduction to our digital creation spaces or DCS at the library. So it might be good if that's interesting to you. We also have using AI tools basics. It's going to, in this program, you'll learn about how you can better utilize different AI tools like ChatGPT. And then we also have microphone basics. This is a hybrid library, and it's a just a basic overview of different microphones you can use while doing different projects. Yeah, those are some upcoming project or upcoming programs that you can attend. You can also find those on our website at planolibrary.org. If anyone has any other questions, you can contact me. I'm a librarian over at Harrington. You can also utilize our LinkedIn Learning and Udemy, which are free with your library card, or you can explore more about Adobe software by making a reservation using the DCS or Digital Creation Spaces. And if you have any short questions or you'd like the or one-on-one help you'd like for library staff to help you with, we do have a service called Ask PPL, and you can receive one-on-one help with something that you're working on through that. That'll also be through our website at planolibrary.org. I can actually show how to get to all of these places as well. Let's see.
I've also put it as a link.
All right, but I'll show it as well. So if we were to go to planolibrary.org, right up here, you can view our Ask PPL service here and make your submission. Um, and then similarly, if you wanted to see ongoing programs or upcoming ones, we have our library calendar, and you can filter by technology, or you can filter by our age group, and that's going to be here as well. So any programs we have upcoming will be here as well. Right. Well, thank you for attending our virtual program. We are really happy to have you, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.